Greetings, friends, and welcome to this edition of Tales from the Tabletop, the video series where I scour the internet and my own personal experiences to bring you anecdotes of adventure, the comical, the tragical, and the highly improbable, from Warhammer to D&D and everything in between. And today's first story is a lot of fun. It comes to us by a guy named Disjunct, and it is titled, "A Lot of Gold, but None Too Bold." D&D 3.0 had just come out, and 3 coworkers and I decided to give it a shot and see how it worked out. Stan was the DM, running a world of his own making. He had the most D&D experience of all of us. Beth was playing Moira, a Xena-like warrior woman, tall and imposing. She'd never played an RPG of any kind before. Dan, Beth's husband, had never played a tabletop RPG, but had played lots of console RPGs. He was playing a mage named Pook, and he had rolled the maximum possible amount for his starting gold. He was really happy about this. He also said he was not dressed in typical wizardly robes, but rather in peasant's garb, breeches, tunic, cloak. Naturally secretive, he wanted to keep his abilities on the down low. I'd played a decent amount of 2nd edition AD&D. Hey, that's my first one. I'd played a decent amount of 2nd edition AD&D, but not for years. Having moved on to other games due to a lack of interest in high fantasy in general, and AD&D's clunky, combat-focused rules in particular, I couldn't handle THAC0. I've had it explained to me by experts, it'll make sense, and then when I'm in the game, I punch the guy in the face. What do I roll again? That's the level of math that I check out in, if you want a clue as to what goes on in here. I was playing Corvus, a fighter rogue and kind of an Errol Flynn type. Rakish, flamboyant, loyal to his friends, but not against swindling or robbing a stranger. Rather than having us meet in a tavern, Stan decided to start us off in media res, which means in the thick of it. The DM rolled his eyes, wanting to get on with the adventure. I decided to help him out, and tried to move towards getting us on the same page. Seeing as we find ourselves, all of diverse backgrounds and yet of similar aim, perhaps we would best be served by an alliance of convenience, of mutual aid and protection, for the betterment of our characters and our fortunes. I am Corvus, gentleman adventurer, and I am handy with a sword, handy with the fairer sex, and handy at getting into and out of difficult situations. "Hi," said Beth. "I'm Moira. I hit things hard." "Hello," said Dan, haltingly. "My name is Pook." He looks at his character sheet. "I don't know how to fight, but, He didn't want to give away his magical abilities, but he wanted to let us know he had something to contribute. He looked at his sheet again. "I can't fight, but I do have a lot of gold." Silence. My eyes light up. "You don't say! You don't know how to fight, and you have a lot of gold? How fascinating." I straightened up and firmly replaced my feathered hat, gripping my rapier hilt a little tighter as a feral grin slowly spreads across my face. The DM face palms. At that point, the fighter interposes herself between us and raises her great sword menacingly. I decided to stop goofing around and get the game underway, relented, and away we went. "I don't know how to fight, but I have a lot of gold," became a catchphrase for the rest of the campaign, much to Dan's chagrin. I'm gonna keep that. I don't know how to fight, but I have a lot of gold. That's just, I feel like there's a short story waiting to be written there. This gives me a fun character idea, like an idea that I've been toying with for a while. So essentially, D&D adventurers are fantasy world superheroes. They've got more or less superpowers, even if that power is just being more athletic. So I was thinking, Bruce Wayne's superpower is that he's hella rich. What if I had a character who was not a mage, not a fighter, none of that, was just a dude with a lot of gold who wanted to go on adventures? What would that guy be? What would those adventures be? I'm gonna try playing that character sometime in the near future, but if you want to try playing that character, do it and email me. Let me know how it goes or drop it in the comments. This next story is called The Ballad of a Tiny Russian Tornado. This took place in a game of Call of Cthulhu, Maryland, 1936. Two intrepid investigators are being held hostage in a hotel room by a pair of Tommy gun-toting mafiosos. The third investigator, a diminutive Russian expatriate, was posing as a hotel employee to be able to talk to the staff more easily about the nefarious goings-on. When his two compatriots had not arrived at the back door at the designated time, he grabbed a room service tray and headed up the stairs to the room where the two were meeting with a supposed gunman for a local cult. What began next was some of the luckiest dice rolling I have ever seen. The Russian decided to listen at the door to determine what was happening. He rolled a 0-1. Call of Cthulhu's dice system is a roll-under dice system, and it's mostly with percentile dice, used with 2 D10s or 1 D100. So in this game, a 0-1, that's a critical success. 100, that's a critical fail. Here we go. Having rolled that 0-1, I decided that he could get a rough feel for the location of everyone in the room, i.e., 2 people on the left, 2 on the right, a man and a woman on each side. He came up with a plan that I was pretty sure would end with 2 Tommy guns perfectly perforating my investigators, and new investigators having to be rolled. He began by kicking the door in, rolling another 0-1 to do so, allowing him to get the drop on all the gunmen. No one suspected a 4-foot, 4-inch Russian in a tuxedo to come leaping into the room with a feral yell. He then threw the serving tray like a frisbee at the mafioso furthest from the door. He rolled a 0-2. It struck the man in the neck, disabling him for a few rounds while he gasped for air. And lastly, he flung himself to the second gunman. Another 0-1. Taking him to the ground while the other 2 investigators scrambled for their guns. His plan of, I kick the door in and surprise them, throw the tray at one of them, knock him down, tackle the second, was far-fetched to say the least, but the dice favored him, and the players still talk about that scene today, 6 years later. Of course, he later rolled a full 100 when trying to throw a grenade into a catacomb, so we could ascertain that the dice were in fact not loaded. And then he rolled a new investigator. This next story is along the lines of an RPG horror story. It's not too bad. It's by Idio Ghost, and it's titled, Player Gives DM Extra Work and is Angry When the DM Doesn't Like It. I think that this is a teachable moment, so here we go. Several years ago, I was running a D&D campaign for some friends and coworkers. It was my first time being a DM, and 3 of the 5 players were brand new. So there was a bit of excitement and interest. The campaign was simple and very straightforward. I made it linear just so that I could get better at being a DM and keep it simple for the new players. I did run this by our other 2 veteran players who were cool with it. Up until one night. One of the veteran players decided he was going to play as a new race he came up with and add a bunch of homebrew rules to what was supposed to be a very simple and linear campaign. He gave me a thick notebook filled with all the rules and lore he came up with. It was overwhelming, I'll bet it was. I went over it one night and finally sent him a message asking if he could do something simpler. I explained again that this was my first time DMing and I just wanted to get a good start. Also, I want to give the 3 other brand new players a good experience for their first game. he didn't take it well. Because of course he didn't. At the time, we made a Facebook group so that we could discuss and schedule our games. I woke up one morning to a 3-paragraph post to everyone detailing how I was killing Dungeons and Dragons. He was nitpicking every little detail of my campaign, complaining about how linear it was and how I was going easy on the party. He then said that I was stifling his creativity by not allowing his 50-plus page character sheet into the game. It was a lot. Was it? Was it a lot? Oh my word. I've met so many guys like this. Oh, just write your novel, man. I tried to calmly explain that we went over this before, that I was new to being a DM, and that I had 3 new players. Everyone made character sheets that described their character's physical appearance and personality. He made a gigantic backstory, making his character the Chosen One archetype with several homebrew rules that he imposed on me. I explained that it was overwhelming and I didn't have time to fit this into the campaign. He then wrote me a 5-paragraph message on Facebook why I was wrong. At this point, I was tired of him harassing me, and I told him he can either leave, find a more experienced group that allows his homebrew stuff, or he could go back to our original agreement with a simple, beginner-friendly campaign. He caved and came back to our group with a much more simple character sheet, but he still tried to do the whole Chosen One BS, which I quickly shot down. 2 months later, he moved. That is when I blocked him on Facebook. OP, I love you, bud, and I understand you because I've been there, but you're killing me. You're killing me. Here's what's up. Simple campaign. I'm a first-time DM. We're doing this simple. We've got new players. Hey, I have this homebrew thing. Here's half a novel for you to read. Not even a novel. Here's half of the backstory to a novel that I want you to read. And just, dude, homie, no. Like, it's a no. You've already gave him more grace than I would have. If somebody appeared to me with 50 pages of backstory before the first words out of my mouth are, I'm not reading that. Like, there's a nice way to say it. It's just, dude, I love you. No, I can't read that. I don't have the time. I'm overwhelmed as it is. I'm doing my best. I'm super sorry. I can't be doing this. Now, so far, at that point in the story, whoever this player is, this problem player, he's all right. He's clearly not good at following directions, but some people need to hear it twice. Some people need to know where the line is, and this is him finding out. Okay, cool. Benefit of the doubt. Him not taking it well, that's the ender. We're done. If I wake up to 3 solid paragraphs of how bad I suck, to be real with you, I'd be very grateful. I would love that, because that's the end. That is the moment that you can type back very succinctly, hey man, I'm so sorry to hear that. I'm new. I'm not good at this yet. And I'm just so sorry that the campaign I'm preparing is not up to your standard. And I understand that you need to find a group that is. Best of luck on your adventures. Block. That's it. He gave you an out. If somebody spends paragraphs describing how bad you suck, you're done. The best thing you could do for both of you is say, we're not going to fit. And then you don't fit. And it's okay. It's not the end of the world. It's fine. It sucks and it doesn't feel good, but it's not so bad, because if you've got the kind of player who's going to spend that much time already telling you how much you suck, why would you want that guy at your table? Why would you want that guy in your life? Now, it might be one of those situations where, he's an otherwise good dude, and just in this context, we don't get along, and that's fine. Tons of friends are like that. However, I get the vibe from this guy that, I don't simplify your life and just go ahead and either quietly or not so quietly, but very immediately put some distance and get him out of it. Where OP lost me, and lost me hard. I tried to calmly explain that we went over this before, and that I was new to... You've already broken a cardinal rule handed down from grandfathers to grandsons. Never, ever, ever argue with drunks, children, and fools. And this guy is at least 2 of those. Don't argue. He's done. You're not going to make him happy, and he will make you miserable. Because the worst thing that could possibly happen in this scenario is exactly what happened. He'll play the game anyway, but he'll sulk about it, and he'll keep trying to push boundaries. It's an especially huge red card when a player writes themselves as a chosen one. That just reeks of, I'm the main character. And when you've got that guy, it's time to tell that guy to go and write his novel, because that's what he wants to do. He doesn't want to play the character. He wants to display the character for you and marvel at his incredible story arc. And what he should do is just go write his novel. OP could be pretty young, and this is the teachable moment. So, I'm not coming down on you, OP. I love you to death. Let this be the teachable moment. Your time, your effort, your sanity are worth so much more than you are allowing. And players who are walking vacuum cleaners who suck up all of the fun, these people are not worth your time, and they will not stop trying to suck out the fun from everybody else and give the fun to themselves, so to speak. That's what Chosen One stories are when they're at a tabletop. Alright. Now, let's wash that terrible story out of our mouth with 2 real good ones. Both of these stories come from username Lopan vs. J. Burton, which, if you know, you know. There are 2 stories. The first one is called Sploosh, and the next one is called The Wizard Takes a Whack at It. The second story is the one I've been illustrating this whole time. I had a lot of fun with the illustration. I had a lot of fun with the story. I hope you like it, and I hope it was worth the wait. Here we go. The first story, Sploosh. When the campaign started, we were all drugged and woke up in a cell that had ankle-deep water rising slowly. Our captors didn't think to take our stuff, including our weapons, so we plugged the hole with bedrolls. 15 minutes later, we had found some dusty sheets, which we decided would replace the bedrolls as the water plugs. I have said this line 3 times, and I have called it bread rolls all 3 times. Gracious. The rogue, who was a halfling, decided he would do it, whilst the wizard and the fighter were having a conversation about House, which I don't watch. I, the cleric, pondered, and then realized, oh snap, the water pressure! Because our GM doesn't like out-of-character chat that affects the game, I had to run through the halls at top speed, down a flight of stairs, and warn our rogue of the impending water pressure. Don't pull those bedrolls out! Don't pull the bedrolls out! The rogue looked at me. What's the worst that could happen? He said. And sploosh! The water buildup was so immense that it picked Rogue up and slammed him into the back wall, doing 6 damage, knocking him out. Not to mention the splashback got my shoes wet. A heal spell later and he was okay. We eventually did clog the hole again. The water had only risen knee deep. But now when the guy who played Rogue wants to do something stupid, we all just look at him and say, sploosh, as a reminder. It didn't work, however, because about an hour later, he was slammed for 6 damage again for other, but no less stupid reasons. On another occasion, and this is the one, same party. Myself and the rogue were searching for a way into some caves where an orc tribe resided. The fighter and the wizard thought they could reason with the orcs. We had done it once before. See, we were to retrieve the king's wizard who had gone totally mad and thought he was a god. We convinced a tribe of orcs that he was a god too. A critical failure on a move silent check and a 6 on the subsequent hide check got fighter and wizard surrounded by Roll percentile dice, divide by 2. 24 orcs. 2 failed diplomacy checks, and both wizard and fighter had become arrow pincushions. But not dead. The fighter tried an intimidate check and failed miserably. Said the fighter, stuffed with arrows and slightly concussed. You orcs better listen, or me and my friend are gonna cause you discomfort? The orcs roared with laughter. The DM turned to the wizard. Wiz, you want to try an intimidate check? The wizard's player rolled her die. The wizard gripped her short staff, straightened to her full height, drew breath, and shouted, You pathetic insects! Purple energy begins flowing out of her eyes and hands like lightning. If you only realized a fraction of my power, your minds would snap like twigs, your bodies would fall apart, your brains would melt out of your ears. I am magic. I am power. Fear me. The wizard had rolled a natural 20. The DM laughing his head off at this role-playing brilliance, all the while throwing dice to see the orcs' reactions. 10 of them drop their weapons and run. 4 of them fall into sniveling, sobbing wrecks. And one of them, shall we say, intentionally fell onto his spear. The other 9 of them decided they would behave. And presto, inside knowledge and orcish meat shields. I love that one. So one of my absolute favorite things, my absolute favorite moments at the desktop is when a player decides that they want to intimidate or bluff, and because for me, that's the moment for me to be entertained. That I'm absolutely the DM who's like, go on, convince me. I'll still roll the dice, but the convincing does something. So I'm like, give it to me. I ask for the player, convince me or intimidate me. And if I get a player that goes for broke the way it's written here, just throws down at that table and is just frothing at the mouth and making their eye contact, no roll. I'm not rolling squat. You pass. Now, if you give me a poor answer, a bad intimidate, or like the fighter says, hey, you guys, calm down or I'm gonna cause you discomfort, I'm gonna make that guy roll too. I might give him a penalty, but if he rolls high, if he makes the roll with that, that means I have to make a character choice for the NPCs. So for instance, if the fighter said, if you guys don't cut it out now, I'm going to give every single one of you a wet willy. And he rolls high, I will decide, you know what? Orcs have a thing where they can't stand stuff going into their ears. And they all grip their ears and say, no, please, not the willies. Which, now that I hear those words out loud, sounds like it would make a pretty neat, naughty British comedy, but I digress. Anyhow, reading the story, I had to draw this one. The story does not mention whether or not the wizard was male or female, but I don't draw a lot of female characters, and my wife and I had an interesting discussion, like which has its own folklore with it and its own baggage from history, and the term wizard is almost exclusively male. Like, what is a female wizard? Well, that would be a witch, but witches are something else. And, what about a sorceress? Well, in D&D, sorceress is a different character class altogether. You know what? Drawing challenge. What does a female wizard look like? And this is what I came up with. I hope you enjoy it. If you really like the art for this one and you want the original for yourself, it'll be for sale on my store on my website, coffeeandhate.biz. Click on store at the top. In the meantime, thank you so much for watching, thank you for listening, and may your dice roll high and never be cursed. Pause for drinky. guy named Disjunct, if I could find it. Second edition AD&D. Hey, that's my first one. I need to come up with like a stinger for every time somebody does that. Like, Thaco is wacko. Second ed and not yet dead. Nope. Second ed, first level in bed? No, that's stupid. I roll Thaco and drink my Fago. I'm going to work on these.